You're the one listening to this. You're the one interested in personal growth and continuing education. You have the ability to completely change the dance if you decide to take 100% ownership for your romantic life. And so I am giving you, this is your invitation to go buy yourself the flowers, set up the dates, discuss this openly. We think that our spouses can read our minds, and we might even actually tell them, and they're kind of like half listening, but they don't actually know how important it is to us unless we make it happen and they see it.
You are listening to the Pinnacle Podcast, where we empower women in medicine through education, community, and actionable strategies for both the practice and the business of medicine.
Medicine is a lifelong career, and continuing education is crucial for professional development. Pinnacle is the first and only multi-specialty organization dedicated to addressing the challenges that all women in healthcare face.
Welcome to Pinnacle, the elite professional community providing education for women in medicine. At Pinnacle, we challenge you to pave your own path by helping you develop the skills needed to not only stay in medicine, but to excel. Welcome, everyone, to the Pinnacle Prescription Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Rupa Wong, and I am thrilled to have Dr. Kate Mangona. She is a board-certified pediatric radiologist, marriage and intimacy coach, and the host of Love Lab MD podcast and coaching program. Welcome, Dr. Mangona.
Thank you so much. And when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the first time somebody's introduced my new brand, Love Lab MD, because I just changed from medicine, marriage, and money, which I was for like 3.5 years, to Love Lab MD. So thank you, Rupa. I'm so honored to be on Pinnacle Prescription.
I love the new name, and we are going to tackle all of the things talking about communication and intimacy, because I think that that's a really neglected topic when we talk about women in medicine, about our relationships and how to sustain them. And that has so much to do with our happiness in the field, in our personal and professional lives, and burnout, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the foundation. It's the foundation. If you're not happy at home, then it leaks into every single part of your life, your academic life, whether you actually realize it or not, with your patients, with your friends. I mean, it's just, you show up differently.
So you are a radiologist, but you have done extra training. I know that you have coaching certification in this field. What drew you to this particular field? Why did you feel like this was a need to address for men and women? But I know that you really help a lot of women in medicine.
Yeah, it was really at the beginning of the pandemic. So go back, 3.5, or was it 4 years ago now? I can't even remember. And I just felt burnt out at home, not even at work. Like, I was happy as a pediatric radiologist. Volumes were down, during the beginning of the pandemic. But at home, I just felt like I didn't have a way to talk about what was going on with anybody. I had looked into different options. I had, talked to different people at my church. I had not wanted to do certain things. Like, I had tried talking with just like a therapist, and it did not serve me. And then when I found coaching, I just, like, during the beginning of the pandemic, there were so many new women physicians coaching programs opening up, and I started joining them. My whole life changed in literally one session. And so I became addicted to it. I started just going back for these coaching sessions. Every time I'd go back, I felt so much better. And I found that really what it did is move me forward, got me unstuck from my old way of thinking. And I didn't even know the way I was thinking was kind of keeping me burnt out in my own motherhood and as a wife and a mother. And I was like, why don't we talk about this more? Like, we're so super high achieving, really motivated people at work. Like, we can all be chairs of the department. We can all be presidents of the world if we really wanted to. I didn't want to. I wanted to be happy at home with my husband and my kids, and also have a really successful career. And so I was like, we need to start talking about this as women instead of, and I know we have so many platforms, including yours, to lift women up, like teach people how to be present on social media, right? But then also I was like, we need to also have the space where we can talk about our marriage in a real way and not a negative way or a complaining way or a let's just beat around the bush sort of way.
I love that. And it's really interesting because I often talk about the origin story for Pinnacle. And I was paired in medical school. This was over 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I think 2002, I graduated with a female general surgeon mentor. And she was a badass, like a fantastic surgeon. But I did not know anything about her marriage, her family, her kids. She did not feel comfortable sharing that. We didn't have these conversations. How do you manage a general surgeon career at an Ivy League institution, at a really academic place? Because you can be chair of a department and still be a partner and a mother and all the things, but you have to maintain that, right? So talk
Yeah.
about some of the tips. Like, what do you recommend for couples and partners and families so that they can still sustain these relationships? Because our jobs are challenging, both clinically as well as all of the other things.
Yeah. And like I have really, there's like three main tips I give people when I talk about like how it needs to be done. And number one is just awareness and like intentionality. Because a lot of us, I feel like we just kind of go through life or like in the rat race or on the hamster wheel, on to the next thing. We get married and they're like, okay, we've got that check, okay, having kids, okay, check, let's just continue on to our career. And we forget that you actually have to put work into your marriage. And when you put work into marriage, it means like you have to schedule it in, like you have to schedule the time in. When we were dating, you scheduled time for intimacy whether you knew it or not, because you planned a date night. You knew maybe you'd be cuddling, maybe you'd be kissing, maybe you'd more, right? But you did your makeup, you did your hair, you shave your legs. And once you get married and have kids, I feel like you don't schedule the date nights because you pretty much take it for granted. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to do date nights. For me, that works in my marriage. For a lot of my clients, it does. Some people, they have different methods. But for two busy physicians who have careers outside of their careers, three little kids, we really have to intentionally be aware of when we're connecting, okay, and when we're going to do it like at a certain time of the week. And the second thing is who you surround yourself with. Okay. So Tony Robbins likes to call this, it's the who, not the how. I could give you a whole rule book of how to enhance your intimacy and how to increase connection, the positive affirmations and but really it's who. So are you surrounding yourself with people who talk negatively about relationships, about your spouse? Or when you talk to your mom or your dad or your best friend and you're complaining because you feel really misunderstood, your husband came at you with a harsh tone the other day and he did this. Are those people saying, yeah, you're right, like he should never have done that, he's such a jerk, and like, are you hearing that repetitively? Because if you are, then you're going to start really believe it. And you might start to believe that you are married to like a monster when he might not be, So it's like the movie you're playing for yourself in your head. So the who, not the how. And that's why Love Love MD is here to listen to marriage stories in a different perspective, like to hold space for that instead of just attacking the other person. And then number three is implementation, like honoring your schedule. So if you do schedule a date night, if you do commit to work on your relationship, connection, conflict management, is number three is actually just doing it, like putting it on your calendar, committing to it and honoring that. And we are really good at that as physicians, as women physicians. So I don't think that's the problem. I really think it's number one, it's the awareness.
And I love also the who, because sometimes that who is yourself, right? That internal dialogue that you're telling yourself and
Oh,
your
absolutely.
space that you're holding for it seems to offer the chance to look at it a little bit more critically.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, we can just spin in our negative, a rumination. That's why it's so important to have to know, right, about amygdala hijack when you're like so angry. Maybe it's not best to react right then. Maybe it's better to go out for a walk or look at funny videos on your phone, like, and intentionally take a pause and say, we can't talk about this right now. I'm going to take 20 minutes. I love you. I'll come back.
I love that. And I think that often happens too, because women in medicine, our jobs are high pressure, high stress. Sometimes we are dealing with a lot. Some of us, like you and I, are also married to partners in medicine, and that then presents a different set of challenges. Or we are married to other people that are in similar high pressure, high stress jobs. How do you recommend dealing with that aspect of the relationship?
Yeah, this was a major issue for you. I will tell you. I mean, this is what really catapulted me into coaching. Is I am an empath. And I know a lot of my friends, a lot of people I surround myself, a lot of coaches we just take on the emotions of other people. I think a lot of physicians are, and that's what draws us to make sick people better and to really be compassionate, is we can feel other people's pain, sadness. And so I would take all that on. Like, my husband has an extremely stressful job. He treats pediatric cancer every single day. And especially when we had started having little kids, like, he saw that, he would imagine, I don't know, his brain would imagine that when he came home and like was holding our babies and then toddlers. So, and he held a lot of responsibility on his shoulders too. If other people in his clinic he didn't think were doing their jobs right? He's, a perfectionist, micromanager, anal, and you'd want your radiation oncologist to be that way. So he'd feel like he'd have to do everything. And he'd come home and he'd dump this all out, how stressed he was, how nothing in his, nothing was as efficient as it could be. And I would take that all in and feel like I had to fix it.
Yes. Oh, I do this too. I do the fixing. I try to do the fixing and he just wants to vent, right? Okay, but I want you to continue because this is so good.
No, yes, but you're right. So what coaching helped me do, like, just to say, long story short here, is to allow him to be him, to show his emotions, to vent, to be angry, sad, and not need to fix it, to just allow it and hold space for it. And that's hard.
It's so hard. It is so hard for many of us, and but so necessary. And especially for me personally, I think that because my husband and I work together, if he's complaining about work and I'm the managing partner, I do all the admin, I deal with the staff. I had to start a switch and say, do you want to just vent or do you want a solution? So I know which mode I need to be in.
Yes.
Which hat am I wearing?
And that's such an important question that we can all ask when our spouse starts to vent. It's sometimes they just need somebody to listen to. And so it's so important to ask that because it's so easy to forget.
All right, let's talk about children and how they really just add to this dynamic in terms of the relationships. I mean, we've got stressful jobs that we are taking on a lot of the emotional burden of our patients, et cetera. Our partners might have the same. And now we throw in kids.
Yes.
What do we do?
Yes.
What do we do?
Oh my gosh, what do we do? Okay, let me think of where we're going with this question. What do we do? So I have 3 little kids. They have crazy busy schedules. I think I'm going to change this next year, Rupa. But this year, I've just had to schedule like Saturdays is 3 hours of dance, gymnastics on Sundays, like every single day of the week. I'm changing this next year because this is I've decided this is like an issue for our family that are so tightly packed scheduled every day of the week. We have to find time where we are just with our spouse to connect. When we have the way the American culture is and our society is, and it's different if you go to Europe or if you happen to be European or from a different culture, your kids, and maybe even kind of Latin America too, like your kids experience life with you. You bring them along to the restaurants and they just they're there. You bring them along to all your adult activities and they're just there. Here in America, we tend to focus all of our attention around the kids, their activities. Like our whole family is going to their activities. We're traveling for their activities. It's all about them. When we're in groups of people, it's really all about them. So and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just different, but we have to find a time to connect. If it's going to be that way, we have to intentionally decide this is mommy daddy time. Like this is us time. And so we're going to go out every Friday night or every Sunday morning. We're going to have this time and you guys are going to entertain yourself. Grandma's going to come over. I have a standing babysitter. I personally have a standing babysitter almost every Saturday night. And it's fabulous. I have like a list of 5 or 6 people I can always count on to call, but I've got the 1 or 2 that are always there. And so I know, because it takes minutes, days, Rupa, for that disconnection to snap in, especially if there's been a conflict or something heavy that needs to be spoken about. If you guys disagree, that disconnection creeps in fast. So having a space for you guys to just be without having to talk about heavy topics, without having the kids around, and just be your old selves again, kind of like back to, honeymoon period, is so important on a weekly basis, I think.
And giving that priority the way that you have. And I used to also have a standing babysitter for our Friday nights. Now my kids are old enough so we can leave them at home by themselves, which is really nice. But we would always just go to a restaurant that was a mile away, even when they were a little bit younger, and do a 5:30 dinner so that we could be home in time for nighttime routines and bedtimes and everything. And I think that that's really, really critical. All right.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me a little bit about all of these things that you are doing. I know that you host a retreat, you have workshops. Tell us about those aspects.
Yeah. So yes, I do love to host workshops because I love when people come and just learn this information. All my workshops are free. My podcast, Love Lab MD, is free. And I feel like this information should be available to everybody, especially all women physicians. We're so busy. And why I do a lot of my things in podcast form is because that's when I get the most valuable learning, is when I'm driving to and from work, or I pop an earpod in when I'm organizing the house, or, getting the kids to and from activities. Now, I am hosting a retreat in Hawaii, in Maui, because I feel like it's a super special place. My husband and I went to an intimacy retreat there a year ago, and it was phenomenal. When you're in a magical place for 5 days without kids, intentionally just working on your marriage, your connection, your intimacy, it really sets up the trajectory for your relationship for the rest of the year. So that's what we're going to be doing in October at the Four Seasons in Maui. And Love Lab MD, also, we have a new course we're about to launch. And so I have a ton of fun workshops lined up this in April. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but yeah, so we're going to be talking about harmonizing parenthood and romantic passion. We're going to be talking about turning cyclical arguments into actually something effective, or, stopping the cyclical arguments and turning that into a way to connect. And we're going to be talking about embracing intimacy again. Maybe you've kind of lost a little bit about that, like reigniting the spark of passion and romance and intimacy, and how to do that for a busy physician household.
It's so amazing that you're creating all of these spaces to work and nurture and sustain our relationships, which are so important, and we don't necessarily give them the time that they deserve. I want you to conclude with one last pinnacle pearl for all of these women in medicine that are listening. What's your pinnacle pearl?
Okay. My pinnacle pearl is that if you feel like you're stuck in your relationship, or your relationship is good, but you feel like it could be better, right? Like you're happy, you really are in love, but you want a little bit more spice. You want a little bit more romance. And you're asking yourself, like, why doesn't he bring me flowers anymore? Why doesn't he take me out anymore? That kind of a thing. Then I will tell you, you have the ability to completely change the dance yourself. You're the one listening to this. You're the one interested in personal growth and continuing education. You have the ability to completely change the dance if you decide to take 100% ownership for your romantic life. And so I am giving you this is your invitation to go buy yourself the flowers, set up the dates, like discuss this openly. We think that our spouses can read our minds, and we might even actually tell them, and they're kind of like half listening, but they don't actually know how important it is to us unless we make it happen and they see it.
That's wonderful advice. I really love that, Kate. All right, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram, Kate Mangona, MD, and my website is Love Lab MD. And you can find a free 30-day challenge there, a 30-day intimacy challenge if you kind of want to spark things up in the bedroom. I have 30 tips. I'll email you one a day for 30 days. And yeah, I'm on all the platforms, but I'm mostly on Facebook and Instagram at Kate Mangona, MD.
I love it. Thank you so much, Kate, for being with us today. I've learned a lot. I am going to take a lot of those tips right now, start implementing them when I return back home to Hawaii. A lot of different really actionable pieces of advice to just keep our relationship strong, which is the most important thing personally.
Yes. Yes. Everybody will notice in your life when you're happier at home.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Thank you, Rupa.
Thank you for listening to the Pinnacle Podcast, where we strive to elevate the voices of women in medicine and inspire excellence across the healthcare landscape. Until next time, keep reaching for your pinnacle.